2000, the United Nations realized, no, we are not going to make it. In order for the human species and our magnificent planet to survive and thrive, we needed to accomplish 17 goals of sustainability: creating clean air, clean water, ending poverty, ending hunger, and 13 more must-accomplish goals by 2015. Lip service cheered the goals, and by 2015, they had not been accomplished. So Mr. Roland Schatz took a new tack. A fifth-generation fighting journalist, at age 10, Roland stood before the Berlin Wall and told his father we needed to tear this evil thing down. He didn't listen when his father told him to select more achievable goals, and he is not listening now. Roland has formed the independent UNSGII Foundation, and he is moving the world toward a second try, a 2030 victory. Can we plant 1 trillion trees across our planet? Can we actually end hunger and poverty in major cities worldwide? Can entire metropolises go completely green? Mr. Schatz is making the impossible achievable. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Roland Schatz.
Hello, everybody. I'm so happy being with you, although it would be even 10 times better if I could be in person. But thank you so much of thinking about our work, thinking about the team who has set up the UNSGII Foundation and is working with the citizens in the 25+5 SDG cities. But maybe I start first by introducing myself. My name is Roland Schatz. I'm the fifth-generation journalist in my family. My grandfather was one of the first who was no longer allowed to serve as a journalist in 1933. My father decided to step down in 1970 as editor-in-chief of a newspaper when his publisher tried to force him to not report on corruption in relationship to the Christian Democratic Party, which took place back then. So I'm coming from a family who knows how important the value of information is, transparent information, and that it can come with a certain price. And I'm saying it today where you are already on day 2 in honoring those who took the effort and going to vote, and where we can see in the example of America, but as well in all the other countries around the world, how important it is that we have diverse media with journalists who know what they talk about and what they write about. Because if we no longer understand what the process of an election is, if we no longer understand what it takes to run for office, what qualifications are needed, and that we have to do our honest research on who qualifies and who is not qualifying, we are about to lose the citizens. And the moment we lose the citizens as our audience, we lose them as well as friends and as partners in the goals we need to achieve. Back then, when I was a little boy, I was born in the mid-60s, I was not thinking and dreaming about journalism. I was amazed by my mother, who played piano, so I decided to become a pianist. So the first years of my life were defined by listening to Beethoven, trying to understand his life, and learning and getting energy from his conviction, of his confession to the true values of life. Because his mother passed away as mine did, and listening to his music and seeing that there is somebody who would never give up and who had such a difficult, challenged life to live. And till the end of his life, he was full of hope. And he was not only talking about it, he was illustrating for all of us that we can do things which we usually, without his music, would not even dream about. Just imagine this amazing song of joy, the poem written by Friedrich Schiller, and the way how Beethoven put it in music, where he created the stage for all of us that we can now, today, sing it. I sing it with my daughters. I sing it with the children in all the cities. We are planting Song of Joy trees wherever we are, because that is what gives me hope. And when I can share my experience with the next generation, that makes me happy. I could not become a pianist because I got chronic tenoritis. So at the age of 18, I had to rethink what I could do. And then my father was good enough to say, well, if you want to do something in memory of your mother and of myself, why don't you become a journalist? So I followed the path of my father, of my grandfather, and my grandfathers, and set up Innovatio as a publishing house in 1985. And I was lucky that I could do this during my studies in Switzerland. And in these days, from 1985 to 1989, I got more and more involved through a family connection with what you all know as the silent and peaceful revolution taking place in East Germany and in East Europe. My best friends were living in East Germany, in Leipzig, in Dresden, in Halle, and I was not allowed to see them, and more important, I was not allowed to share with them my magazine. Like Beethoven told us, you always find ways. So I found a way to get the magazine across the border. And I could experience how people, first in small groups, then in bigger and bigger groups, were determined to make change possible. And as you know, just next week, November 9th, in 1989, something happened which my father always told me it would never happen. On November 9th, 1989, the wall came down. And guess what? I was with my friends in East Berlin that very night. Until today, I cannot forget that. Seeing how friends were able to cross the border, who were not allowed to do that, to reunite with their families for decades. And now all of a sudden, we were together in Germany and we were together in Europe. Now fast forward, you can imagine when I heard about the so-called SDGs, these Sustainable Development Goals, who were accepted by your president, by my chancellor, and by all in all 193 presidents all around the world, who decided that these 17 sustainable goals should become a reality for all of us, latest by December 2030. For me, this was my second opportunity to see a wall coming down. But this time, not a physical wall. This time it's only about the wall in our heads. Because in contrast to 1970, when I had soldiers pointing machine guns against me, asking what I would have in my suitcase and whether there would be books in the suitcase, because as you know, it was not allowed to bring books from the West to the East. Now in 2020, there are hardly anywhere people with machine guns pointing at us when we try to work on these 17 goals. Zero poverty, no hunger, access to health for everybody, education for everybody. These 17 SDGs sound almost too good to be true. So that was the reason when I became senior advisor for the Director General of the UN in Geneva, Michael Möller, who had spent 35 years together with Kofi Annan, to show that working together, that teamwork is in the essence for all of us. When I became his senior advisor, I said, look, if these SDGs will be accepted by these 193 heads of states, I would like to set up a foundation, the UNSGII Foundation, where we create transparency on two things. Number one, is the corporate world willing to embrace these 17 goals for their own way, how they explain how they spent their money last year and what they are going to do in future? Because if we don't have General Electric, if we don't have Toyota, if we don't have the German Lufthansa behind us, it will never work. And guess what? In your audience, you have a great friend sitting, Al Berkeley. Hi, Al, who used to be the president of NASDAQ. And I gave him the data. And guess what? He turned these data into a fund so everybody can now be invested in those stocks where you know that the corporate leaders are dedicated to work as well towards reaching these 17 goals. That's one part of the foundation. The second part of the foundation is that we said we are going to select 25 cities and 5 indigenous communities, and we provide for these 25 plus 5 all the funding, all the know-how and global recognition that they can implement the 17 SDGs already by 2025. And for that, we created 2 very concrete projects. The first project, and I would like to invite you to participate no matter where you are. The first project is, in a year like this, where the world is under the burden of COVID-19, you in America, you are facing 3 times more deaths than you were facing through the Vietnam War, already with less than 12 months being hit by COVID-19. We need to do something for those in our cities who are left behind, and especially in those cities where it will be cold this year, where people who are not as comfortable as I am, who are not well positioned as I am, who are struggling to finding food, who are struggling to find a proper, decent living, we need to help them. And that is why we are creating for the 4th Advent, December 18 to 20, we will do different concerts in cities around the world, in America, as well as in Latin America, in South America, in Mendoza, in Argentina. We will do it again in Africa, in Europe, in Asia. And it would be great if you and your friends could help support these concerts either with your own hands or with donations in order to make as many families happy that they can celebrate Christmas in a year where no money is left over, where they are struggling to even have something to eat, not to talk about that they don't have a perspective. So the second element is the side of the concert, what we are doing together with Pope Francis, and it is called the SDG 1 dinner concerts. We need to create hope for the people. So therefore, we are starting the largest reforestation program in the world. We are planting forests, which are called the living temples, in these 25 cities and 5 indigenous communities. And guess what? Those who we invite for the dinner concerts, who are probably without work, who are homeless, etc., we are giving them concrete paid work by planting the trees together with us. And as we are uniting that with technology, as we are chipping these trees, we are not only able to pay them for each tree they are planting, we are able to remunerate them year after year again with all the carbon credits these trees which they have planted will gain for the better of our planet and for their income. Because thanks to the stock exchange of Stuttgart, you can now not only sell these carbon credits, but you can now send the money on the SDG debit cards, which we are handing over to those in need. So we can give each of those who are going to plant with us the trees this debit card, where they can get themselves support for the SDGs, but they can contribute to the SDGs. So each of the tree they are planting, and now because the tree is chipped, we can follow up year after year how this tree is growing. And with the growing tree, the leaves are getting bigger. And the Stuttgart Stock Exchange is able to then trade the carbon credits. And we are able to send the income from all these carbon credits back to those who planted the trees. So these would be my 2 concrete offerings for all of you in the room and who are watching the video, if you want to become part of the UNSGII family, helping with the concerts and giving work to those who are planting the trees, please reach out. My email is very simple, roland.schatz@UNSGIFoundation.org. And I'm very much looking forward being with you very soon.